Okay, so we are back in open session. We have at least two public comments. So I'll just, before we get into this, we don't have a lot of public commenters, so I'll just note that we generally ask that you keep comments to about 3 minutes or so, and it is just comment, it's not a two-way dialogue, so you can say whatever you would like, but we don't engage in questions or other commentary. So I will welcome, I think it's Nicholas Hoffman. All right.
Good evening. How you all doing?
Doing well?
Good, how are you?
Good. My name is Nicholas Hoffman, as you had just stated. Excuse me, I've got a cough drop in my mouth, and I was trying to chew it before I came up here. So I'm going to keep chewing as I'm speaking. I hope you don't mind. I live over in what, as you see on there, I live in Riverside at 467 Kent Road, right down the street from Blythe School. We have 3 children, my wife and me, and we all of them have matriculated through the district, 96 and also 208 and on to college. So I'm very, very pleased with the district and what they've done for me and my children. What brings me here today to speak to you? Well, it has to do with the bilingual teachers. That there was an article, as you well know, that was in the Landmark, and it indicated. Are you folks from the Landmark, by the way? Nobody's here from the Landmark. And it indicated that we have 50 non-native English-speaking students coming into the district. I'm not opposed to that. What I'm concerned with, as a taxpayer, I'm concerned about it, and that's where my concern comes in. In addition to that, I also read that in the state of Illinois, we are one of 11 states, Illinois being one of those states, where it's mandated that we teach bilingual education in the school, in our schools. But there's one thing that I found to be very interesting was that the law also provides for funding for the teachers. So my question is this. From what I understand, 3 teachers are going to be hired, or you're going to attempt to hire 3 teachers. I don't know if you've done that already.
No.
Have you done that? You haven't. You're searching, though. Is it 3? Do I have the number right? 3? I do. And my question is this, and I'll propose it to you, Doctor. Will that be covered, their costs of those teachers be covered by the state of Illinois?
So it's hard for me because I know we're not supposed to engage in dialogue with public comment, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with you another time and can share how the funding works, et cetera.
Why can't, is it covered or not?
So this is public comment so that the public can
It's
come
not-
and say
There's no
their piece, but
discourse?
it's-
There's no
correct.
going back and forth?
This is
Okay.
not on our actual agenda to engage
Okay.
in two-way dialogue.
So I can't get an answer to a question, that's what you're saying?
I can tell you that it's not straightforward. It's not a fully funded or not fully funded. There's offsets to the funding.
Okay,
That's
well,
why
and then I have to go
it would
on.
be a conversation.
Then
So
I
have
think we have to go into a deeper conversation,
Yeah.
but I'll call your
Yeah.
office,
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
If you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. Well, see, I don't know, well, I might as well move forward as if it's going to be partially funded by the taxpayers, okay? I'm going to assume that to be the case based upon your answer.
That's fair.
And partially funded by the state of Illinois, okay? So therefore, that portion that'll be funded by the taxpayers is what concerns me. It was wholly funded by them, I'd be very concerned. Now I'm sort of mildly concerned, okay? Partially concerned. I know that Clear Batch, I think you hire Clear Batch to go ahead and vet the students coming in to make sure they are in the district, because we'd only want district students to attend our schools and pay for them with our tax dollars. And it's a fair thing to do. That's fair. I think we agree with that. That would be fair. So I'm concerned about something else. Since you can't give me feedback now, I'm concerned about the vetting process. I mean, I have to presume that Clearbatch is a sophisticated company. You probably did a search to find and exercise due diligence in finding this company to go ahead and vet the students. A company that is highly sophisticated is going to use algorithms to determine if, in fact, the students belong in our district, therefore can go to our schools. And I go back to my initial concern. It seems like, and this may be wrong in my assumption here, that if 50 non-native speaking students are entering our system, it seems like an extraordinarily large number, and certainly in the middle of the year. What ends up happening is, I mean, we're all parents, I presume, or most of us are. We will move into a district if we have children, and we want those children to enter the school year at the beginning of the school year, not the middle of the school year. Now, there's a lot of circumstances that might dictate where that may not be the case. And, you know, people who may live in apartments, they may be more, they have a greater ability to have mobility and movement in and out of areas, okay? So that would apply to them mostly. Nothing wrong with that, but it would apply to them mostly. And some may be people who sell their house and they wish they would have sold it in the spring, moved in the summer, the children start the first semester, the next semester. And that doesn't always happen because life is not perfect. So, I go back to this, the vetting process. Well, I'll pose the question since it's on my mind. I understand the algorithms where you take databases and push information against information and look at it and say, okay, this child is either a guardian of or of an adult that lives in the district, or the child, and there's actually, that's got to be, there are court documents to support that. And so in the vetting process, they're able to push those documents together and therefore and match it with the child who lives there, or if the child is of a parent or parents in the district, they would have that information too. And that the algorithm would pop out the exceptions. So my question would be, unanswered as it might be, my question would be, does the vetting process, when red flags go up, and to me, if red flag is 50 students coming into the area, is a red flag to me. Is there a vetting process where agents actually go to the homes of where the children live, or purported to live, to confirm, in fact, they do live there and are in the district? So that's a concern. The other concern I have is this.
So, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to come
I'm sorry.
I'm going to need to ask you to come to a conclusion. It's been about 8 minutes, and we have a rather long agenda tonight.
I'll come to a conclusion in less than that, okay? I'll try to talk slow to make it 8 minutes, fill it out, but no, I'm joking. I won't do that. Migrants are flooding the United States. Okay, we all know this. They're coming through the southern border. Actually, well, not mostly the southern border, the vast majority. As of this is according to the Wall Street Journal, of November 4th, 2023, 120 nationalities with 60 different languages are coming across the border. So the question is vexing to me. It seems like it's possible that we could have someone from China who speaks Mandarin, and we'd have to have a Mandarin interpreter. And we can go on and on with this. I said Mandarin for a particular reason, because that is the most common spoken language in the world, believe it or not. I didn't think it was, but I looked it up and it is. So that being said, Doctor, we are probably going to talk. I want to thank you for your time and listening to me patiently. Okay, I'm getting a lot of smiles here, so I appreciate that, too. And again, my name is Nicholas Hoffman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoffman. And then I'll have Jerome Gargano? Okay.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jerome Gargano, live at 463 Kent Road, Riverside, Illinois. I've been a resident here for 38 years. Both my kids have gone through Blythe, Hauser, and also onto RB. School is fantastic. I have no problem with that. The education they received was overwhelming. I'm flabbergasted about it. They did a great job. The concern, I got 2 points I want to make. One, I was a little shocked, and I come from a background facility management. And so when I hear the news that you have an office on Harlem Avenue that costs taxpayers over $400,000 to $600,000, so you have an office to go to, I think that's wasteful spending. I'm being a facility manager. I can certainly find room in this building that I can house an office. And you had an office here before. That's one point I'd like to make. The other point is, how do I say this? I think that's just, it's a wasteful spending. And seeing my taxes go from, my assessed value just went up now to $57,000, so which means I'm going to get a tax increase. I'm 66 years old. I'm about to retire. My wife and I, our taxes are getting out of ridiculous out of hand. I can't afford that, so you're really forcing me to really possibly move. The point I want to make out, my sister lives in Tennessee, and she met a rock star from the Guess Who, guitar player. I don't know his name, Michael Shirkoff or something like that. And he moved from New York to Tennessee. My sister lives in a very, very nice neighborhood. It's all brick. Most of the homes there are 2,500 to 3,500 square feet. Her taxes are $2,600 a year in real estate taxes. I'm paying close to $17,000. It doesn't make me happy. So after meeting Michael, he had his daughter and his son were in the room, and he said, "Hey guys, it's 9 o'clock. You got to be home." And they're like, "Okay." He goes, "Did you do your community service?" And I'm thinking, rock star, red flag, what are these kids in trouble for? And then I find out the state of Tennessee, and while we don't implement this in Illinois, they do community service. And once you do your community service, you get to go to state school for free. So why don't we have kids do community service, have some skin in the game, and then they can get a better education? Her taxes are $2,600 a year. She lives in Hendersonville. It's outside Nashville. My niece lives downtown Nashville in a beautiful home of like $1.5 million. Her taxes are like $9,000 a year. It's like me living on Michigan Avenue. So I'm just saying, why can't you're the school board? Can't you guys follow other states? You know, why do we have to have blinders on us and constantly just look at this is how it is? You know, the next question is, I got nothing against teachers, I really don't. They're our future. Why do we have to hire union teachers? If you see the pensions, that's what's killing this state. And we all know that because we're all taxpayers. But if you go to other states like Tennessee, nowhere near that. And you can look it up. I mean, it's just, that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Grano. Somebody else just walked in. Was that a public? Did you have it? No. Okay. Okay. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Let me get back over to the agenda. So that'll move us into the public hearing for the 2023 property tax levy. Is there a motion to open the public hearing on the 2023 property tax levy?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Ms. Claps? Aye. Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
And Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay. Hearing is open.
Okay. Is there any public comment specific to the tax levy? I'll sort of take yours as a bit of tax levy commentary. I don't see anybody else. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing for the 2023 property tax levy?
So moved. Second.
Kathy, can you call the roll?
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Claps? Aye. And Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay, hearing is closed.
Okay. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as presented tonight?
No.
All right, so then we will move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Antwite?
I have two quick items. One, I just wanted to share, and we'll be sharing more information with families after the winter break, but we have organized a parent presentation and actually a student presentation as well to help parents protect their children on devices, social media, and gaming platforms. So I just wanted to share the flyer, very preliminary information right now, but we know this is a very timely topic, and I appreciate Don Tefano and our team looking at sort of some options that would be meaningful for our families as we all work together on keeping our kids safe online. So a little bit about that, more to come. We'll be sending that out in regular parent communication, et cetera. And then the student part of it will be for Hauser students on February 12th. And then I just wanted to say happy holidays to everybody. It's hard to believe it's December 20th, and it's been an exciting week. Month, really. There's been a lot going on with band and orchestra and choir and student performances, et cetera. So our schools have been busy, and really buzzing with the excitement that December often brings to young children. So happy holidays to everybody here. And that's all I have.
Short one. All right. So next up is the consent agenda. So could the board secretary please read tonight's consent agenda?
Tonight's consent agenda consists of the following: the minutes of the following previous meetings: November 1st from committee of the whole meeting, our November 15th regular business meeting, along with the minutes from the November 15th closed session meeting. The personnel report as presented, payables pre-list as of November 30th, along with payables pre-list as of December 20th.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda as read?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Claps?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
And Mr. Muirhead?
All right.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. Any board member comments before we move into old business? Happy holidays. All right.
Christmas concert was amazing, very well attended, and a bit hard to see at times.
All right. I heard that the one at Ames last night, my kids aren't that young, but I heard that one went over pretty well. It sounds like it was rather busy, full
Also very
too.
well attended. Yeah.
Dan, you were at Blythe.
Was it Blythe? Yes.
How did you find the auditorium?
Oh yeah.
Or was that part of you where things were hard to see?
Starting off towards the back of the auditorium, it really wasn't viable, I don't think, to have parents at the very back of the library. I actually talked to Martha about it after, and well, I'm sure there will be some revisiting of that in the future. I don't know if Martha, if you'd had a chance to speak with DLA yet, or.
I have, and so in the new performance space, chairs were all sort of flat. Kids are little. So we've talked about, and actually at Ames was very, very well attended last night too. They ended up having to break it into two groups sort of in real time, and the K1 families all stayed in the grades 2 and 3, went up to the library and waited. They took a brief break, and then they kind of switched. So we've talked about everything from bringing all the programs to Hauser, just taking a different night for each school. Hollywood could probably stay at Hollywood. But Blythe was very crowded. Ames was very, very crowded. Central was packed. Were you there, Selena? Yes, yeah. It was, but it was sort of like every seat full. It was sort of packed, and it was okay. But I mean, it's great. It's a great problem to have. Families want to come. Of course, we want families here. So we have to look at that. One idea would be kids coming to Hauser. The other is doing like a K1 brief intermission, then a 2-3 grades 2-3 program. The music teachers have shared that they really kind of don't like taking the kids out of their typical performance space. It's where they practice. It's where kids are comfortable and familiar, especially when you're talking about like our youngest kindergarten, first grade students, that it might be, a bit overwhelming. We did do Ames here one year, several years ago, and that was kind of what we heard, that they were, because they do wait in their classrooms, right? So they're in a very familiar spot. The other thing we talked to DLA just the other day was either elevating the kids more somehow in the performance space at Blythe, or some kind of Dan brought it up actually, some kind of like bleacher type thing almost, that the visitors would be elevated. because everything was just
In
sort of
back,
like
they
on the
do have
same
it
level,
towards
more, yeah,
The dance performance space,
yeah.
and towards the back they have
Yeah.
jump on risers.
So we're looking at it.
And I'll stress as well, the stage area, I mean, was definitely beautiful. It was a great place to see the kids, and I'll also say that, yeah, as kindergarten, when it made its way through third grade, we were eventually able to get up to the front. So there might be something to doing it one grade at a time, maybe switching people out, or having a waiting room. Okay, parents of first graders, you go and move them in and out. I guess that might have a better experience for everybody, because it's kind of tough being at the very back of the auditorium and you're seeing nothing but somebody else's back, and your kids performing in front of you for the first time.
Overcrowding is definitely becoming a hot topic now that we're back
It was
to
a hot topic
in-person
around me,
things.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Even after all our facilities work, and we
Yeah.
knew we were sort of building to meet our needs, and we didn't build to excess on purpose. Some of the comments about, taxes tonight are pertinent to all of that. So I remember when we did the Ames Visioning, the conversation was, can we build large enough space for the whole student body and family? Like, no, we don't have enough land, right? So we sort of made the best. I think the Hauser Auditorium is an option. There's some transportation and just unfamiliarity
We've had a lot
issues.
of discussions about both ideas, and we are constrained by the fact that kids and parents and teachers do like to be at their home school, and that space works 99% of the time. But when we have giant gatherings, then it's not so good. But we're not going to build a space for 1% of the time. So
We'll find
it's
some way to
close to an unsolvable issue, short of having an absurd amount of space and resources to do that.
Or just changing the schedule around, yeah.
And those are the schedule changes are probably more
Yeah.
in line with what people want for being at home, quote unquote.
And again, I'll say it's a good problem to have, because it was great to see families. It was parents, it was grandparents, it was babies and younger siblings, older siblings, all of the above. So that was great. That's what we want our programs to be about. So yeah.
And I went to the 4th, 5th grade orchestra band concert. I think it was just a couple weeks ago, and here in the auditorium, and that was very nice. All the new seats, all the new carpet, all the new lighting. It sounded great. And as always, I know the band teachers won awards for the program that they had put together here, but I always look forward to the little comedy routine that they put together too. They're quite a funny little bunch, and so I always get a chuckle out of that, their little comments. So anything else? Move on. Yep.
Band conference, and the auditorium there, though, doesn't aesthetically, yes, it's not nicer, but there isn't really much change. But it does look and sound so much better.
Yeah. If you didn't know what we did, you would have no idea we did anything.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Because I asked my wife, and she's like, "What'd you do?"
Yeah, my wife said the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like, what happened? I'm like,
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we'll move into old business. So then, tax levy 2023. Is there a motion? Is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the tax year 2023 tax levy resolution for an amount of $30,117,302?
So moved.
second.
Kathy, can you call the roll?
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Claps?
Aye.
Mr. Marvel?
Aye.
And Mr. Meredith?
All right.
Motion passes.
All right. Next item is the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding for the minimum wage increase.
Can I
Yep.
back up
Yep.
briefly? This goes to some of our commentators.
Yeah, go ahead.
Plus, this goes to the fact that we had a public hearing moments ago, but our levy will be 5% above what it was last year. This is at the property tax cap. This is slightly below inflation, but it is at our legitimate maximum, and we do have a public hearing process so that the community does have an opportunity to speak. So we have encouraged additional participation, and I have said it before, and I will will say it again, that we are increasing our budget at the rate of inflation, or today's budget is slightly below the rate of inflation. So we continue to be reasonable in our request. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Anybody else before I move on? It's all right, push through that pretty quick. Okay. So the next item is the memorandum of understanding for the minimum wage change for specific to cafeteria workers. The general theme that we've been discussing here is we have a few employees that are below the minimum wage that is going to be mandated by the state of Illinois, I think beginning January 1st. Am I getting that correct? So we have worked with the union to comply with that, and so this is the memorandum of understanding to that contract change as far as those wages go.
And it's cafeteria workers and midday assistants.
And midday
when you
assistants,
read
okay.
Inside the MOU.
All right, so is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve this MOU regarding the minimum wage as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Kathy, can you call the roll?
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Claps?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
Next item is for the English learner teachers, the additional staff requests that we talked about at the committee of the whole meeting 2 weeks ago. This is for the +3 FTE that we discussed and gave verbal commitment to, and so we're actually officially voting on this. Is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve increasing the English learner department by 3 FTE as presented?
Second.
Kathy, can you call the roll?
Actually, could I ask one question prior though?
Sure.
So, and I think it was asked by at least one of the gentlemen there, that I think it was noted that these positions were going to be posted, attempted to be hired. Not sure if we were going to be able to get one or not. I don't know. Was there any update from that, Martha?
Postings up, and I know as of yesterday there were no candidates, right, Angela? Correct. Okay. So I assume that might be the same today.
So definitely not a guarantee that these positions will be filled before the end of the year.
Correct.
Good call, Dan. Sorry, I should have asked if there was any discussion on that before asking for a roll call. So.
No worries, no worries.
No, I guess I had a question just sort of on that, just sort of for my own clarification. I mean, this is something like sort of mandated. We have, the state sort of requires us to do that, right? And so,
Yes.
and I know it's a complex formula.
Or Spanish.
And it's because we met that threshold of
Right.
20 students in one school site,
Right.
that all are Spanish speaking. So even to like clarify around the comments tonight about like why not a Mandarin? It's a numbers driven requirement by the state. One of the comments that was about an interpreter. Interpreters would be required regardless of the language.
But
So a
this is
family
also-
could participate.
But sort of getting to the funding issue, this is also sort of one of those unfunded mandates that we.
Yeah, I mean, there is some grant funding that comes through the federal and state government. It is not a lot. It certainly isn't a reimbursement for the
Right.
position, but it's not zero. And so that's,
But
I
right,
wasn't
but
trying
it
to
doesn't
overly
come close
complicate
to
things. Yeah.
covering one of their salaries
Yeah.
either, right?
Yeah.
So I just want sort of for my clarification for that.
And you said interpreter, but we are using interpretation devices, right? We're not actually hiring interpreters?
No, like
or-
at an IEP meeting, we're required to have an interpreter
gotcha.
there.
Okay, all right.
At a parent-teacher conference, we're gonna make every effort to have interpretation. So when.
But not as like a daily thing for the.
No, not for the students, right? So for students, we're using different strategies, a lot of visual cues, a lot of and, we mentioned the devices that do the translation, but an interpreter is a specific thing that would be needed, particularly for families to participate meaningfully in their child's
Yeah.
education.
Yeah. Okay.
So to summarize, some of the EL increase is driven by a minimum number of students in a school. There is some funding from state and federal, but it's certainly not funding that captures all of the increase.
Correct.
And then we are also increasing just to provide better services.
And to Dan's question, we are approving the addition of 3. That does not mean 3 will immediately be found and hired. So,
I mean, our thought was we needed one, we really need
Now.
one right away.
Yeah.
We're anticipating perhaps some growing needs and continuing. And also, like, if we can hire 3 this year, that would be great. I don't think that we're, very optimistic that we'll hire all three, but I think what it does do is it gets word out that if people are looking, again, we're not gonna take an Illinois school teacher from another Illinois school within the school year, but maybe spring, summer, they would say, well, I would be interested in this job
Yeah.
for next year. So I think it gets the word out,
Yeah.
and that's intentional too.
Recruiting and
Yeah.
getting ahead of future
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, given the presentation that we had at our last committee of the whole meeting, I'm going to steal Selena's comment there. It feels like we were falling behind. So this definitely is fitting a need that's there, that's
Yeah.
existing, and seems to only be getting worse by the week.
Yeah.
Angela's texted me and say there are 3 applicants right now. I'm not sure they have all the credentials, but we will check that. So that's encouraging. That's an improvement since yesterday. So,
Real-time updates.
But again, and Angela's also clarifying that there were 51 new students that moved into the district since August, 10 of which are newcomers. You know, we talked about the definition of newcomer is new to the country.
Any other discussion before we vote? Okay. Kathy, now could you call the roll?
Okay, Ms. Claps? Aye. Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
And Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. Next item, preschool tuition for the fiscal year 2025. Is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve $3,573 as the new tuition rate for the 2024 to 2025 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
So just this is sort of tied to the school fees that we were talking about. It's just, this is what we've increased it sort of based on like a formula. And so it's just a increase, and it's just applying to the preschool. Right? Yep.
We are continuing to increase it at the rate of inflation.
And I know we've always talked about this, and Jim's been very good about pointing it out, just sort of looking, we're not trying to beat the market, we're not trying to undercut the market, we're trying to be at the market just to have an option, but we're not trying to undercut actual businesses around here and things like that too. So it's kind of market rate, so to speak.
And Martha, I'm going to sound really uneducated here, but this is our ECE program.
Yeah, so that's what we call our community preschool or blended preschool. We tend to, or our early learners program, we tend to refer to it in different ways. So children that have an IEP that are required to have that free appropriate public education at the age of 3, they come for free. But then the goal is to have an inclusive preschool setting. So there are community students that pay a tuition for that to be their typical preschool.
And join us
Yeah.
for part
Yeah.
day preschool, and they pay tuition to be in.
Yeah, a really great preschool. People really are very happy with it, and it provides peers for our children with special needs and specialized services for our children with special needs. The children with special needs are not paying the tuition. I think that's important to
My 2
differentiate.
younger kids
And
both went
that's-
through the program, and definitely, it was a great experience for them.
And that's where I was going. It's, you said it already, but blended, diverse program, little kids. People can opt to pay tuition, but we are certainly, they can go elsewhere as well.
Right, and I think Wesley said, like, we don't want to undercut the community preschools. We want to provide a great option for community members, and we don't have enough space to take, how many do we take, Nora? It's,
Not as many as we would like, but I
Yeah.
think we have room for it.
Yeah.
About 30, 60, 90, I guess.
AM, PM, and then, yeah.
90 total.
I'm sorry, 30 or 60. I realized that I wanted to sorry, blended. So yeah, total community student would be about 60, but not the absolute max.
Additional commentary? No. Okay. Kathy, could you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Claps?
Aye.
And Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. Next item is the summer 2024 maintenance project MOU at Ames for tuck pointing. So I want to make sure I get this right. This is to authorize the architects and the cost of the architects to draw up the parameters of the project to get the masonry or I'm sorry, the tuck pointing job completed. This is not the actual bid or approval of any work to be done. This is just a prep for going out to bid and the costs that are associated with that. Is there a move for the Board of Education to approve the architect to provide professional services for the masonry repair project at Ames Elementary School as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
As you already noted, this is for professional fees from the architect, and this includes design and bidding and construction administration. So this gets us to the end. This gets us to the architect's services through the end of the project. And then, as you noted, will be a public bid for a contractor to come and do the work. And this is at Ames to do the rest of the building, i.e. everything but the
old part.
the old part. This is everything but the addition.
And it is being, the projection given to us by Ramesh, thank you, is about
450,000.
yeah. So hopefully we can come in under that. We'll see.
He's been very good about his budgets.
Yeah,
and
he
he
has
tries very hard to make sure that we have enough cushion so that we don't have budget issues.
He's shockingly accurate on these estimates from
He's-
past ones, which he's been doing it a long time, so
I have
he's good at his
said
job.
it many times, but he is a excellent owner's rep, and he does us good.
Any other comments?
Just a quick note, noting the dates on the document. We theoretically would be receiving the bids today, so I'm assuming that we still have enough time on the calendar to adjust these forward.
We did receive the bids today.
Oh, we
so-
did
yeah,
receive the
so-
bids, okay,
So I
never mind
realized
then, we're on
that
schedule.
process went ahead of the actual MOU approvals, but that's just a timing issue for all of us, so
Mhm.
there will be bids to look at in January.
Okay, then, so
Formally
this is
approved, yeah,
accurate. Okay.
yeah. So I'm glad you approved it.
Well, we haven't.
No,
yet.
sorry.
Things,
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that, Dan. So,
Yeah.
did not click with me when I was looking at this. So,
A lot of
okay.
attachments this meeting.
Yeah, no. A lot of opening and closing things
Yeah.
for sure. Okay. Any other commentary? No. All right, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Claps?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
aye.
And Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay,
Good.
motion
That's
passes.
good.
That'd be awkward, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next item is the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding for the new playground and outdoor learning area here at Central Elementary and Hauser Junior High for the new grass play field, reorganization of the parking, and pickup and drop-off areas, and all the good stuff we're doing at the back of the campus here. Is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the architect to provide professional services for the new playground and outdoor learning area at Central Elementary and Hauser Junior High School as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is for more significant time effort by the architect, but a similar timeline of design, bidding, construction administration, closeout, all the professional services necessary from the architect to get the Hauser Central project constructed. And those bids are also being received.
I guess the additional comment that I would have on this, and this was, I brought this up at the committee of the whole meeting, is just, I think the options that we were presented with some of the color schemes are really incongruent with the look and feel of this community. I think a lot of the awnings were blue, some of the other play spaces were blue. We know as a board that this community appreciates playground space that is very naturally toned and fits in with the landscape. And so while that's not something that we're sitting here approving, I just want to make sure that I speak now so it's not, me forever holding my peace on it. And I think we should really reconsider the coloration of that playground and not just go with the option as it was presented.
Joel will take that to Facility Advisory
Absolutely.
Committee and make sure that that is incorporated.
No equipment has been ordered, none is installed. Since we don't even have the contractor on board, we have a little moment for the architect to rethink the color scheme.
I will say the Ames playground stuff is blue and it doesn't fit that.
But
I don't think it would fit in here, so I agree with you.
Well, Ames color is blue, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the school color,
So
so
that
it kinda makes
matches
sense.
Central's red, so.
There's that girl that wants the pink and purple. She might be real disappointed.
I
Selena?
feel like we've heard enough from our community that they really appreciate playground space that fits in with
More muted.
that's
Yeah.
more congruent with our landscape, and so I want to be sensitive to that, and I don't think a blue awning is sensitive to that.
So this is not, we're just voting on the MOU for the architects. This isn't the final approval of the overall project, but
correct.
I guess,
The bids are being received from the contractors right now, and we will be hearing about those in January and approving a construction contract. But approving the construction contract is bringing the contractor on board so that they can start their work. But they will then have to order that equipment. It has to be produced, and
What we've paid for so far and approved is the general schematic drawings of the general idea. And now we're paying for them to get into all the, like the
all the
very specific
details to-
details to actually do the construction and get a bid.
This needs to be exactly right here, 10 feet from the building.
Yep, exactly this.
A fence that is X feet or inches tall, this style brick, these colors.
Yep. And just to note, since we did on the other one, the estimate provided by us from Vistara is $5,682,500, which is actually quite a bit lower from what I remember our original conversations from a couple years ago being in like the $8 million range. So we've definitely narrowed the scope on that as far as costs. So that's good.
With our commentary, we have refined the scope and tried to get us to a cost that we thought was reasonable for what we want.
And after the bids come in, which they came in today, now what happens is Ramesh and the architects do the research on the bidders, right, to make sure
Correct.
that they,
vet.
yeah, they vet them, they do that analysis, and then the bids actually come back, and right now it's slated for the January board meeting, and there won't be a January cow, so and what you've done in the past is when you hear the bids, you actually approve them that night, because they don't really, it's not one where we talk about it 1 month and approve it the next. You hear the bids and typically approve them if they're acceptable.
Correct. Basically,
Yeah.
Vistara and DLA will, as you noted, look at the contractors, get their credentials, insurance bonds, make sure that the bid they gave us is well thought out and they have covered all the bases for what this plan needs to, what they are being expected to build, so that they know they're not making a mistake somewhere, and then they come to us with the recommendation, which is typically to accept the lowest bidder, but the architect and Vistara have verified it that they are the lowest responsible bidder. And that's what they're doing, is they're making sure the responsible part is in there as well.
Just to note, I think I don't remember which. I want to say it was Hollywood. Maybe we did kick out the lowest bidder because they weren't a responsible bidder. So
Yes,
they have
we did have that
rejected the
issue.
lowest bid in the past.
And not every bidder is responsible.
Yeah.
And that's why we need this extra research and assessment.
Okay.
so one question here. I think the last time we talked about this, it had come up that the playground, or not the playground, the play area, the field, was going to be out of use essentially for a year due to grass planting and growth, and I didn't know if there'd been any updates on that, or.
That is still what is expected.
Mhm.
So we have to have some discussions on Martha's end and see what options we have for our kids to try on both scheduling and choices by the department, the PE department, to make sure that the kids have a good spot to be and all the activities are work for what we do have available. And I realize I'm being vague, but I'm not. They have to think it through.
Yeah, I'll just say real life. When we did the Ames project, there was a, not like this, but there was a grassy area to play, and the kids just trampled it within the first 2 weeks, I think. And it was off limits for over a year. And that they finally just came down for this school year, but the grass hadn't rooted and the kids just destroyed, just by playing on it, they just destroyed it because the grass hadn't set correctly, so.
It never had a chance. It never gets.
Yeah, it never had a
to
chance.
recover when kids are running on it.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate, but hopefully it'll be very sustainable after that.
But to your point, Dan, yes, that we thought we would be able to get on the field a little bit sooner than we really will be able to.
So, and then I'm guessing that I know, Martha, you had mentioned you were going to speak with, the Parks and Rec Department or the village and just see if other fields or other areas might be made available.
Yeah, and we've had some of those conversations, and some of it is you kind of what Joel was saying. It's really what does the middle school PE department want and need. So, one solution that's been discussed is Mary Park, which belongs, I believe, to St. Mary's. The PE department, and then for Central, different. We've talked about the triangles, but the PE department doesn't really want the triangles. I think they don't see that as so functional for them. And I think they're thinking more indoor PE. They want to adjust their health schedule so that some of the indoor learning that happens anyway they were going to parcel it out so there's an expectation that kids will be indoors during those periods of time. As I mentioned, I think they still do their outdoor running, and then I think they'll consider the Mary Park idea. I don't know that they're enthralled with that idea, so it may just be a challenging year, and we'll get kids outdoors as much as we can. We did very specifically look at the capacity of essentially what's going to feel like the central playground area, and they're going to look at that to see if there's, I think what the capacity is, not that they're going to play on the equipment, I can't remember the number, but it's 100, so PE classes could be out in that area. Are there some group games or something that would be appropriate in that area? And I think they almost have to see that first to see if they think that would work well for them.
They have to look and just
Yeah.
how wide, how big,
Yeah.
what games
Yeah.
can you play, what activities are appropriate for that space, given the fact that there's a wall on one side and a fence on the other.
Other comments? Okay, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay. Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Claps?
Aye.
Mr. Marhold?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Next agenda item is the intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, regarding improvements to the Blythe Park tennis courts between Riverside School District 96 and the Village of Riverside. And I believe we talked about this at the last committee of the whole meeting as well, one of them.
I think so, yes.
This is just purely, we're not changing anything with the court itself or the current striping. We're just adding additional foursquare and I don't remember what all it was,
This
but just
is
additional.
entirely to add some paint markings in the
Yeah.
tennis court area to provide additional ideas for activities for the kids.
So is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve this intergovernmental agreement regarding improvements to the Blythe Park tennis courts between Riverside School District 96 and the Village of Riverside as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
There's some elements that need to be filled out, but there's some dates that are supposed to be entered in here.
Into them, okay.
The MOU it's got some, in general, it'll be fine, but right now, the term of the agreement is not determined, so. It has sorry, I will just simply read it. This agreement will be enforced for a period of enter number of years, commencing on
Gotcha, okay.
an effective date and ending on a date. None of that is filled in right now.
We'll clarify that piece, thank you.
So I guess my question is, can we even approve it if it's not specified?
Without the time frame, do you want to wait on it? Because it's not going to happen until after the winter now anyway, so if you're more comfortable waiting,
Yeah, I think we should, what are we talking, yes, it should be fully filled out.
The only blank I'm seeing is we didn't put Blythe in that line. Am I missing
Look
something?
at the bottom part where it says now therefore, number 1, term.
Oh. Yep, totally overlooked that. Okay, thank you. Good catch, Joe.
And
then-
honestly, Martha, give you a task.
Sure. And I'll probably give it to Jim. But anyway.
Jim, call
pay attention.
DLA and find out how long they expect the striping to last and add 2 years to it and make that our term.
Okay.
My guess is we call it for 7 years.
1, 2, 3, the fourth whereas, we just need to have Blythe Elementary School put in there. I was
Yeah.
okay approving it without Blythe in there, but yeah, your terms of the
We
dates.
shouldn't leave it open.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry to have missed that.
Okay.
I apologize for not seeing that earlier.
So do I have to make an unmotion?
Yeah.
No, I think
Or do we just move
I
on?
think we'll
Okay.
just agree that we defer it.
Okay,
till-
so we're gonna table this to January 17th. We should have, I think we should have that by,
This one's been dragging out there forever, so it's-
Yeah, it's not gonna hurt us.
Yeah.
okay. So we'll get this on the docket for next regular board meeting. All right, so then that'll move us into new business. So school calendar for 2024-2025 draft. You taking this one or are you calling Angela?
Angela, would you like to come and share about the draft of our 24-25 school calendar?
Good evening. Just opening up so I could talk about the specific dates, sorry. Yes, thank you. All right, good evening. As most, if not all of you know, when we look to create a proposed calendar, I work with a team of staff members as well as parents. This year we had 2 elementary teachers, a middle school teacher. One of them, the second one wasn't able to attend the day we had the meeting. Kathy Perino joins us. We had a support staff person, and then Ms. Gorman from Blythe Park, Mr. Harvalis from Hauser, and then 2 parents, one representing elementary parents and one representing middle school parents joined us at the meeting. We talked about the fact that our winter break usually mirrors Riverside Brookfield High School's winter break, as well as their spring break. Our spring break mirrors their spring break. So those are non-negotiables. We start with that in mind. We looked at when we normally start school, not looking to make any changes to the start of school. And so we normally start around the week of the 20th, 21st on that Wednesday. Both the teachers and the parents in the room, the staff members and the parents in the room, felt that starting with half a week for students and families was better than having a full 5 days to just jump right in. So we decided to continue with the start of August 21st, having 2 Staff Institute days prior to that. We'd have our normal Staff Institute day in October following Indigenous People Day. And then also, because there's not an election in March, we'd have go back to our regular Institute Day in February that's backed up to the President's Day weekend. There is an election day, speaking of election days, there is an election day the first Tuesday of November, which the governor signed into law that's a national holiday. So that's why that shows as a holiday. That is something that all school districts are required to do. And then we would continue with the half-day professional learning in April, the last Friday in April. And we're required by state code to have 176 student attendance days. That's also in our bargaining agreement. So when you look at August 21st being the start, the 176th day ends up being Monday, June 2nd. And so that's why we end on a Monday next year. So that's our proposed calendar for the 24-25 school year. I also want to note that summer school for this upcoming summer, for the summer of 2024, would be run from Monday, July 15th through Thursday, August 8th. And we'll make sure we post that online because I know we had talked about summer school and we want to make sure we're getting the dates out to families sooner so that they're planning for it. The catalog will still go out at the normal time, but we want to get the dates out to families earlier. And that was mentioned in our meeting too by the parents who were in our meeting last week. So are there any questions for me or any concerns about the proposed calendar?
Thanks for putting this together. It sounds like a lot of thought and energy went into it and a lot of feedback from different shareholders. I think the only thing that sort of stands out to me is having the end of the school year end on a Monday, right? Like I can just imagine that not only will the Friday the week before be sort of a non-learning day, but then this Monday will also be sort of a non-learning day, right? And the purpose of our mission here is to educate students, and so to have the most effective learning days, it seems to have that Monday be our last day might challenge that effort. Is there any way we can adjust, or what other options were considered? Maybe moving the professional development half day. Could we put that at the end of the school year on the Monday, so that way we could move that April 25th to a learning day?
It's something that we hadn't talked about when to move the half day. That is something that can be considered. How would you like to go?
The last day of school can be a half.
That was something that Kathy and I were talking about.
And I'd have to check if that's still current, but it used to be the last day of school was always like an hour. You know, it was something in all school districts, and they changed that, saying that the first and last days had to be full days of school.
Kathy
so I
and
honestly
were just
don't
talking
know.
about that.
So how does that half day, though, like you said, the total number of learning days are how many?
176. And because we're in school for half a day, over the course of so many days, you can bank half-day professional learning days through the Illinois State Board of Education. So through this banking system, because we have enough days banked, we can have a half day of attendance that still counts as one of the 176.
But it might not be allowed to be the last day, but we can check that with the
Right.
state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, we're also worried about student attendance. That's been an issue here. So the more that we can encourage students and make it easier for students to attend on those days, I'm just worried that, having that Monday be a school day, you're going to see low attendance, and people are probably going to already start off on their vacations.
I will say, even if it is a half-day professional learning, it's still going to count. And I think families would be even less willing to go to school on that Monday when I'm only going till 11 o'clock versus I'd be going a full day. So I don't know that necessarily solves the concern that you are bringing up, that we also talked about in our meeting on Monday. We have concerns about ending on a Monday as well. And we did look at some other options. We talked about maybe pushing Institute Day to a Friday, the 16th instead, so it was Friday and Monday, and then starting school on a Tuesday, so that we're shifting things. But that was not something that we as a group felt would be in the best interest of, and that's including the parents too, in the best interest of families, of students, because there are a lot of families that plan that last weekend getaway, hurrah piece, and that it wasn't enough time to start changing that thought process, that if that was something we were looking at a later calendar, another year, that maybe that would work, but that there was concern voiced that may not be good for families either.
Are we on the sync with RB at that point? Or?
RB is scheduled to start on the 13th, I believe. So there would be families that have high school students would probably be in town on that Friday, but it's not the families it's the teachers, right? So because it would be the Institute Day on the 16th. So it'd be our teachers, not necessarily parents and families.
I guess I'm currently calendar it's always been good. I sort of agree with Selena. I think that one making that the last day is a complete waste. I mean, that's not going to be helpful to the students at all.
And normally what our schools do is they use that last day for their field day activities, whether it's on this year it is a Friday, it's still going to be their field day activities, their completion ceremonies, all those celebratory pieces. And so those would be on that Monday because it's the last day on a Monday, where this year it's on a Friday because it's the last day on a Friday. So the last day of school usually is like the wrap-up cumulative events of the year.
What is April 18th? I don't understand why that's a non-attendance day. Am I missing something?
It is a non-attendance day because it's Good Friday, And so
it's a
schools
religious
usually
holiday,
do.
and we're
It's
closing
not a
schools?
religious holiday, it's a non-attendance day.
The state designates it as a,
Because it's a religious holiday?
well, so, yeah, and I'll,
I'm
there's
not
a,
a fan
there's a
of religious
long,
holidays.
I'll just share, there's a long history in the state of Illinois that this is a non-attendance day in most all Illinois school districts. And we have a contractual agreement right now that a religious holiday is something that our staff are allowed. And so the thought behind it is that you would have so many staff members taking it as a religious holiday that you would be unable to staff your school on that day. So, like, I appreciate the personal thoughts on it, but it is a common practice, and I don't know if I dare say all, but many, most Illinois school districts designate this day in that way.
non-attendance, yeah. And it was something we also discussed in our committee meeting also, because
It's not a local District 96. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
This isn't something that we uniquely do.
Wasn't there also discussion around the parent-teacher conferences possibly getting moved to like October? I know many families, teachers rely on like that full week of Thanksgiving. Teachers have the Institute Day Monday, but I guess kind of what maybe came of that.
so it's not off the table, but where we went with that is there's some structures we need to work on if we're going to have a mid-trimester parent-teacher conference. And so we felt that that would be best when we move to standards-based reporting, that we do it, that we make that switch for parent-teacher conferences then as well.
Are there institute days that we could substitute for that Monday? Like the institute day in February or the institute day in October? Could we make that the Monday of June?
Make that
What
June
is it?
2nd instead
Yes.
of, yeah. Yes, that's something we can look at. I am hearing that we should probably talk a little bit more at cabinet, and I possibly reconvene the team for us to have a little bit more discussion about where we might be able to work on some of this. We can also then look at the half-day law and see, or the last day of school, first day of school law.
And I'm thinking, it's possible we've ended on a Monday before. I realize
We
it's
have.
awkward, and I know the committee looked hard at that, like to see how to possibly adjust it, and Angela's sharing that with you now. It'd be interesting to see if, when we've done it in the past, all our old calendars are recorded, and then what student attendance was like. Like you also said, the last day is often, it's a day usually kids want to be there. It's field day, it's award ceremonies, it's fun things. Certainly, as Angela's expressed, the ending on Monday is an awkward thing, but they've looked at sort of the different ways to do this, and it is, obviously our first goal is to meet the needs of students and making sure it's a strong instructional calendar. The second is we do need agreement from our staff. So there's really multiple issues that come, and the community too. But I say that, I guess, when I say we're building a strong learning calendar for our students.
So I agree with you. I was just about to say the same thing. So you're trying to do the job for me.
Sorry.
No, I agree. I think just there's a lot of feedback. We're not going to solve it tonight. So I think if there's any other comments, maybe just email them to Martha to gather all that, and then we can figure it out. It's a first read, so
Yeah.
good discussion. But yeah, I think
A small additional comment is like, in terms of how we lay out the calendar, I think adding a little bit more of a description around the half student attendance day would be helpful for families to understand what's going on that day.
Can you, just what do you mean a little bit there?
Just like to say this is a
purpose.
half student attendance day but not give a purpose, I think leaves questions with parents.
So maybe on the calendar saying a half student attendance / teacher professional learning in the
Yeah.
afternoon, or?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's it.
A clarification would make sense, definitely.
Okay.
The other thing, and we could decide this, I suppose, in January. So draft tonight, possible approval in January, maybe not, with some of the questions and more comments and time needed with the committee also. I think in the past we may have also published a draft, because sometimes what families really want to know is they want to know when winter break and spring break are next year, and they want to know
And when school's going to
yeah,
start.
I mean, yeah. And we could put it, a note around like the first day and last day are sort of still up for discussion, but it's going to be it's going to be within a day or two of that. Like if families are thinking about vacations and other things, sometimes they want to know that.
And the core ones are going to be what you just said. So I think I agree with you. I think we've done that in the past, and it's in here too. So I mean, the public can see this, but maybe making awareness in some capacity that it's
Yeah.
out there. And who knows, maybe we'll get feedback, but I think that's usually what I hear is
Yeah.
I just need to know when spring break and winter break is going to be.
Yeah.
So
Especially winter break this year looks kind of, or next year looks more normal than it
Yeah.
has the last two, where we go through like the 9th, you know, or because of when these traditional holidays fall. So back I think it's like 3rd under this,
mhm.
but right now we're not back until the
8th is the
8th
first
or
day.
Yeah, so because of when things fall. So this feels more, again, when I thought normal to me,
Yeah.
but yes. Cool.
It's
Thank
definitely a
you.
good time to go to Disney, though.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Never going again?
Check it off the bucket list. Don't have to go to therapy saying, my parents never took me to Disney. So.
Is that because you looked at your bank account when you got back? Just everything. All right. Okay, so that moves. Well, you're gonna be the star of the show for the rest of the night, Ms. Gunn.
Yes.
Moving into Press Plus number 113
Okay, yeah,
popping
so
up. First
speaking of
read.
First reads, right. We're going to move into Press 113, which has about 30 different updates. But the way that I normally do it, you know, this is updated in response to some of the bills that were passed during like the first half of the General Assembly here in Illinois. So a lot of very familiar updates to many of us, but some that are pretty substantive and I think, you know, necessitate conversation. So the way I like to do it is kind of via bundle based on the areas that these policies affect. So I'm not going to go through every single one. I'm just going to highlight some of the ones via these bundles, these themes that I felt, you know, most relevant for discussion. But of course, if there are any that you all had questions on that perhaps I'm not speaking to during this first read, feel free to throw your questions out. But we'll just kind of start with the first kind of bundle, which is the section 2s regarding board governance and open meetings. So the first one I want to reference affects us directly to 120, which is board member development. The changes here actually come from one of the footnotes, but essentially effective January 1, there's now definitions for kind of like trauma responsive learning, whole child, et cetera, like in the school code. So how that's relevant to us is because now new board members need to be trained on trauma-informed practices. So our policy prior said like beginning fall 2023, fall 2023 is passed. I believe Selena and Marlo are, being new board members, are required to take this training. I had Kathy check with ISBA about many of the current sitting board members, whether it would be something that we would be able to take as well. I don't want to make a presumption, but I'm assuming many of us would be interested in doing so. And I think I would highly encourage us to do so as well, even if we are not required to within our first year. And my understanding is those resources, it's online, kind of like a Zoom type training that we could get more information on. But yeah.
On demand, or is it a live webinar? Do we know how it's presented?
It's on demand.
Oh,
On demand. Oh, have you already done it?
Nice.
I've done most of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can just log in. It's videos. It's different presenters. Forensics, one of the presenters,
Okay.
and they walk through some really interesting information about like trauma and you know financial reporting and financial discipline for a school board. It's a good package. So I would recommend it, and it's like I said, on demand. So do it at your leisure.
All right. Okay, well, I was gonna say sign me up, but I'll just go do it. I'll log, or I don't know, however I need to do it, but I'm gonna.
You, Kathy,
You know what, the field rep had said that she would like direct us to how to get everybody on.
Okay.
So I'll have our field rep reach out to us.
Yeah,
and she
I
can
would
give
just
directions.
recommend it as a best practice for our own development, and certainly to help enhance conversations we're having. For those of us that attended the annual conference, a lot of sessions in regards to this topic as well, trauma. So
That's what I forgot to put on the agenda tonight.
oh,
I wanted to put that as a topic. Okay. No, sorry.
So pretty straightforward. Again, most relevant for new board members, but happy to hear that existing board members are interested in that. And then 200 types of school board meetings. So obviously a very long list of the reasons that we can go into closed session, some of which we utilize this evening. But it actually adds a new reason. So you can hold hearings in closed session related to denying admission to school events or extracurricular activities. These kind of have been done in open session in the past, but now you have closed session meeting exception. So it just provides a little bit more flexibility to the board. So another reason that you can go into closed session has been added to 200.
So would it be to protect somebody's privacy, like if somehow a background check turned up something, or is that the intent?
That's been my understanding is some of, the topics that you're discussing, can get, in a community setting, can be really personal. So it does allow for that increased, I guess, privacy of the person in that situation.
Reading it and reading the other policies, they are pretty
Sensitive, yeah, that's the word. So.
That.
Okay.
Nice to, I guess, again, option to go into closed for that. And then the other one, 200, also now allows another reason that a board member can attend remotely. So we're familiar with, personal illness or disability, employment or district business, family or other emergency, but also now unexpected child care obligations is the new one. So long as the quorum is still physically present. If you have an unexpected child care obligation, it is a valid reason to be able to attend the meeting remotely. Remember, there had been some talk in the past about like covering childcare or something. So this is probably the new, the more reasonable way to get around that, not having the district pay for, sitters. Any question on some of the policies that fall under section 2, the board governance?
The only I will also give my support or encouragement or whatever on the trauma piece for us that have already done all the other stuff, just as we just got the governance award or whatever it was, and if that's IASB, if that's their recommendation to take it, I mean, I'll take it anyway, I'm just interested, but just as a kind of a note, kind of fits in with that whole thing that we just got, so. No other questions or comments from me on that section.
So for the next section, Jim, I might need your help at some point, but where'd he go? Oh, there he is. He's sitting quietly. So some of these have to do with district operations. A lot of my notes were Jim, ? Is this going to be an issue for us? Jim, ? But the first one, 410, fiscal and business management. So you all probably recall last year and some of the updates that made their way into our policies, the law that was passed that required us to disclose like our cash reserve balance for operational funds. So this year they call it like the sequel to that. So starting next school year, 24-25, districts are required to present at an open meeting a written record of annual expenditures of the district's operational funds from the previous 3 fiscal years. And ideally, it's done at a meeting in which the board adopts its levy, so timely. But the theme here really was this excess accumulation of funds. So talking about that 2.5 Miller ratio. And essentially what they're hoping for is if for boards that are greater than that, they essentially need to submit this reserve reduction plan by a certain date in December to show how they're going to spend that down over the course of years. So again, excess of cash reserves.
And I was curious, I guess, having.
That's why I was like,
not too long ago, we definitely had reserves that were far higher. I was wondering, would we have ever exceeded that number at some point?
The 2.5
ratio.
Very high unbalanced, but we had a lot of delayed maintenance work and capital, so that when you put off the maintenance work, I guess you can build up your funds that way.
But they were saying greater than 2.5 times your operational.
Yeah, we're not.
Sure.
So we don't.
We were maybe 120 at the highest when I first got here.
So that's why I didn't think it was
1.2.
going to be a problem, but
But if I can also
Go ahead.
interject, 'cause I actually had this question when we were talking to the accountants during the audit. I had a question and they came back to me. That number also is sort of a trigger too, that we could start getting into some issues with that if we ever exceeded it. So it's to our advantage never to get to this point.
In terms of what, like property tax challenges or
Yes,
something? Or-
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And that, I don't think that has anything to do with the transportation. This is just purely the operational fund,
Purely
right? And
operational.
because I remember we had off of one of the audit maybe 2 years ago, we've been working down our transportation fund, and so we had a couple hits where we were way too high, and we have taken action on it. So I think everything we just approved today is within current standards. I mean, we're well below the
Definitely,
2.5
yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point,
Well,
right?
we're not close.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're not close.
We'll take a look at the audit next month too, from the previous year, and then I'll take that and do the next projections off of that.
And then no issues, Jim, with the requirement of presenting at the open board meeting the annual expenditures over the last 3 years?
Not at all.
I didn't think so. Okay. And then just also on, I think that was the main one, Jim, but 460 purchases and contracts. This was really seen as a positive development because boards can increase the bidding threshold now to a maximum of 35,000, where it used to be 25. The question that I did have though for Jim was the addition of like the design build contracts. I was a little confused myself. I think it's footnote 15 that really discusses like design build contracts versus, but that's not how we engage
We don't-
in
we haven't done
our
that, so.
contracts process. But if you
If we
choose to
do,
do
then-
that, there are a set of guidelines for what you need to do, but it's not the way that we engage, so. Not that it's moot, but. Yes, that was the one I didn't fully understand on my own. And then 4160 also learned that this is something that we are already doing anyway, but environmental quality, beginning July 1st, 24, it prohibits schools that serve K through 8 from scheduling pesticide application during the school day, which is defined as 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., which we don't do as it is, so. Now it's required for schools that were doing it, K through 8 can no longer. Yeah, just any questions on some of those from 4, or perhaps Jim answered some of the questions you had or thoughts you had? Okay. We have not gotten to any that have questions, but we'll discuss those. So that takes us into some of the 5s on hiring and conditions of employment. Gosh, I'm out of order here. I'll just look through my notes. So 530 just has new wage transparency law. It's this national trend happening in Illinois. Goes into effect January 1st, 2025. So we have time to prepare for implementation. But essentially, it requires all employers in Illinois that employ 15 or more individuals, that includes school districts, that to post your pay scale, which we do, but also benefit information in any job postings. And Donna's fully aware of this, knew this was coming down the pipe. Since we take care of our own postings, we don't have a third party. So just ensuring that we will be complying with that in a year's time for any postings.
And I think is the current pay scale or whatever, like the table that we have in the contract, is that sufficient to meet this? Because we only have 10 steps and then it's just a flat increase. I would think that that's sufficient, right? Because if you're coming in as a 0 or a whatever with experience, you have a slot, and then once you're over those 10 steps, it's just a percentage increase from that point forward.
Yeah.
So is that,
That's a good question we can take
Yeah.
back. I mean,
just wanna
I
make sure
have the
that's- I don't
same
wanna-
understanding as
Yeah.
you, that it would be considered.
because we have to publicly post
Sufficient.
every individual, their name and their salary, so I think those two things go together. I think we're already complying with this, but it just, the way we have
post
it.
the full contract, which also contains a lot of the benefits information. Now, there are some people that are not covered by the contract. So, yeah,
Okay.
I think there's some nuance there that we need to take a closer look
Okay.
at, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here they are, found them. 5210, Martha, you might have to help me with this one. It discusses resignations, which our press document says that we're gonna leave it as is, referring to the collective bargaining agreement, because it mirrors what we already do. But essentially, what it did was kind of revise like the the teachers, both whether they're probationary or tenured. So if they leave to take another teaching position during the school term, the board can refuse to accept it. They can decide whether they're going to refer the teacher to ISB for potential suspension of their license up to a year, and they define the school term as well as, even within 30 calendar days of the first student attendance day. But our policy says that we refer to the collective bargaining agreement, which we are leaving it as.
It is a review and monitoring one.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
5250 is one of the ones with question leaves of absence. So this one provides with extended bereavement leave to unpaid leave to full-time employees who have tragically lost a child by very specifically suicide or homicide. And the question asks about the size of the number of full-time employees in the districts because that will dictate the amount of leave between 6 weeks versus 12 weeks. So we are a district that has over 250 full-time employees, so we would answer it as such, which would mean 12 weeks in the event of the loss of a child to suicide or homicide.
I'm just curious, and I don't know if you'd seen the training on this yet or not. I guess why is that so specific?
I don't know. That's a
actually,
very...
Yeah,
Go
that's
ahead.
actually a question I had when I was reading that. It's like, why
Why is that?
why is it so specific? Because
Well,
like,
losing a child by any means would be
yeah,
horrific.
I mean, there was just that case, there was just that story, like 5 kids died in Arizona in a house fire.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't that, like that unfortunately happened here, why wouldn't that person get, I mean, it makes, I guess to me, it makes no sense, and I guess then my follow-up question would
Yeah.
be,
What do we are...
can we just basically
Blanket.
make it blanket for a loss of any,
Yeah.
like a child?
Just take those couple words out.
Yeah,
Right.
talks about a Child Extended Bereavement Leave Act that's in the,
It just seems like it's very,
I guess it sounds like if we're following an act, if we're following, a legislative action, then perhaps there's a reason why it's delineated like that, and that we wouldn't, I guess we would need to consult our
But-
attorney if we wanted to broaden it.
but I guess it's, to me, it serves creating two classes of bereavement.
Oh, I don't disagree.
And
Yeah.
to me, that just doesn't seem,
Well, I could say, yeah, we can
Yeah,
look
I mean-
into it more and, but obviously no issue as to how we would answer the question with our above 250, but.
right, I mean, to me, it just seems so, I mean, very unfair.
I'll
That's
try to
odd.
find out more about the origin of it.
Say it.
Yeah, what maybe the intention is.
The policy currently gives, I'm not gonna come up with good words here, so forgive me, please. Gives a staff member 6 weeks of bereavement leave for any
Any.
close family member who happens to pass away. This seems like this makes it 12 weeks for the homicide or suicide, so there must be something very specific about that
The nature of that type of
The
loss
nature of that-
necessitates
thank
the
you.
additional potential of up to 6 weeks, but I can see
Yeah.
how an argument could be made that.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems, it's like saying, like, how somebody dies is more traumatic than another way, it just.
Yeah.
It seems to be focusing on that it was caused by outside forces. It's not just.
No, it's just 2 outside forces.
No,
There's-
well, but I'm saying, I mean,
it's not like I mean,
there's
what about car
another
accidents or,
line
you
in
know.
here that notes death of a family or household member who is killed in a crime of violence. This seems to be very specific towards violent deaths.
I guess if we can, like, I guess my question is if we can find out why, and then can we maybe change it, because I don't think, again, I don't think it's fair.
I think the nuance here is Joel is saying we already have 6 weeks for any reason, and then you'd be creating a policy that changes the contract. So I don't know that we can just,
But I guess we're being mandated to change this. We don't-
we're being
if it's a
mandated to
legal
provide,
action, though, it's
right.
a legislative action.
Yeah, because
Right.
the contract actually gives people 5 bereavement days, so this is in excess of the contract.
These
Unless
are
you
this is
Unpaid, yeah.
unpaid
Yeah.
leave
Right.
of absence. So
Yeah.
it's
Okay, yeah.
basically the legislature has decided that suicide and homicide are specifically that traumatic that
Unpaid
they
does not necessarily mean
merit.
free though for the district.
What's that?
Right. But
So
I don't think
it's
that's
unpaid
irrelevant.
to the
Right,
person,
yeah.
but
Right,
the district
it-
still has to
it-
cover the class.
Still covered.
More research on this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
made a
I guess
note.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, made a note. Then 5330, sick days, vacation, holidays, and leaves. Speaking of Election Day in November, so this is for, not all, what,
The non
union staff.
right
So
non-union support
it adds the
staff.
2024 Election Day as a required day off.
For everybody, but then it sort of created this question around looking at the vacation days for our non-union support staff. And actually Don did a survey with sort of area school districts on this topic.
Oh,
We
awesome.
felt we
Perfect.
were low,
Okay,
but we're
yes.
not, maybe we're not, right? Yeah.
What?
On vacation
Vacation
days for
days.
non-union support staff.
Because we're at, what, 10 for 5
Yeah, 10
years?
start.
Up
During
to.
the first year, and then I think it's 15 after 5.
Okay,
and
so up to
then
5,
20 after
yeah.
20. So very, very common in terms of those benefits. Our benefits are very competitive with other districts. There was a couple things in the survey we put out, asked about vacation time, sick time, personal time, how rollovers handled. Do they do payouts? How long do they get to carry? How much can they carry in terms of vacation time? There's a couple things that were kind of interesting, just from, could be some niceties. Like right now, that classification can roll over, but they need to use them by October 31st. Some school districts go to December 31st. The other thing is, in terms of starting, some districts are looking at, well, how much experience do you have? Because if if you have 15, 20 years experience and you're coming from maybe a district where you've got 20 days, now you're saying, oh, you only get
Back
10.
to, yeah.
So is that, that could be a deterrent, possibly, if people are accustomed to having that 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So those would be all things to possibly consider, but the rest, very similar from the feedback, from the response we've gotten so far.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, very competitive.
So really, the policy was recommended for review because of the election
Yeah,
day, but then
yes,
it brought
but
up
if
the
we
question
wanted-
of vacation days, just
Yes.
our own internal processes there. So appreciate the survey and information. I think we'll leave it as is.
Yeah.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, so moving along into, so any question, those are really the main ones I wanted to point out that fall in section 5, kind of hiring, personnel. Okay. So some of the 6s that we get into, curriculum, instruction, library, oh, well, we're ahead of 6:30. We're ahead of the game with 6:30 because that's the one new requirement that by the 27-28 school year, schools in Illinois must establish a full-day kindergarten program with the possibility of a 2-year extension for them. But just think about the pressure some school districts are going to feel to do all that facilities work in what will be a handful of years.
Assuming you can.
Yeah. So, again, nice for us because we had already updated that policy to indicate our full day program. 660, and yes, I'll see if, I don't know if Angela has any comments, but essentially this one's curriculum content. So there are 3 new curriculum components, but the only one that's relevant to our district requires instruction on the Native American experience and Native American history starting in the 24-25 school year. The other 2 are for grades 9 through 12. So if you're interested, if you have high schoolers, that's dangers of allergies and dangers of fentanyl. And ISB has, instructional material available to assist and aid in these implementation of this curriculum content, but just kind of ran this one by Martha just to make sure whether this is something we are already doing or just, ensuring that we'll be complying with it by the 24-25 school year.
And Angela did do some research in talking to social studies, so we're in compliance there. I mean, do people have questions? Do you want Angela to share more?
We're already doing this?
Specific.
Or we have to tweak, like, I knew we were doing some, because I remember when 660 got revamped, like you did the whole curriculum presentation, and we were offering something in that area, but perhaps not fully to comply with both experience and history.
Correct. So we do offer in 6th and 7th grade social studies, we do talk about Native American history, but we only cover up to, I believe, 1865, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. So to be in line with this policy, I'm going to be working with our social studies teachers after we return from winter break during the second half of the year to make sure that we realign our curriculum so that we're working up to the time frame that 660 now says, and that we're also including some other pieces from 660 as well. So the teachers know about this new piece, and we've been in communication, and we've agreed that it's something we're going to work on the second half of the year.
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess that one sentence on Native American genocide, is that coming from press, or is that coming from the law?
It's coming from the law that press put in it. So press put it there because of the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I think the next one I need help from a lot of people on a lot of these policies. So the other one that also has a question is 6230 with library media programs. I know we had been discussing this a lot, and then this spring, Illinois actually became the first state in the country to pass a book ban legislation. So it doesn't make it so that boards just have to adopt it. It's only if your district wants to be eligible for state grant funding. So as a condition, this act requires that libraries that want to access that grant adopt essentially this language. But I just was not sure or unclear about the role that this grant plays for us in the district. Are we recipients of it? Oh, okay, look, we even have a certificate.
Mr. Don Tufano received a letter on December 15th, very timely, from the Office of Secretary of State saying, I'm pleased to award the Riverside School District 96 a fiscal year 2024 school district library grant for $1,368.83.
So if we want to keep getting our
Yeah.
$1,000.
Right. And this is something we have
600.
received regularly. I actually
Yes.
remember some board comments earlier
Then-
saying, like, it's not a lot of money, but it's,
But I was saying that
What's-
even if
yeah.
we technically didn't qualify, or, the grant was not our primary motivator, I think many of us were interested in having some specific language in our policies, even outside of the curriculum objection, that specifically addressed this.
Yeah.
And the recommended language from press is the one that refers to the Library
Yes.
Bill of Rights.
and we do, right?
Right, so I guess that was one question I had, is I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because the second one, the practice of banning books and other materials within the district material is prohibited, but then it goes to the American Library Association's Bill of Rights. I guess the second one seemed more sort of don't do it, don't ban books, and sort of more in compliant with the state versus the first one. So I was just confused.
I know the language feels stronger, but I think the way I understood it, more from the webinar, because they did get into the difference, was the recommendation was adopting the language is better than the drafting that statement, because it's not as nuanced. I think if you actually read the full Library Bill of Rights, which I'll be honest, I did not dive into, does have more precise language than that one line. Although I get that line feels like it gets to the point. The Library Bill of Rights, I think, has that plus some additional meat behind it. So their recommendation was that, and I'm not
Go
sure.
with the default one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is one that we need to, run by our attorney if we're discussing any others with them to say, would you agree that using this language is the more appropriate route? But it sounds like if we are interested in having language in here, do we,
No,
could
I mean,
we agree to that?
Yeah, I would agree.
And again, we need to now to continue receiving this funding. however, in whatever amount it is to us. And
I
then it's
can-
really
yeah.
just a matter of selecting the language. And the recommendation was the default because it actually has more like teeth to it, I think, if you really do read the Bill of Rights.
But we can do, so we were sort of, Angela, Don, both have something to do with sort of how our libraries function here. So we sort of got caught up in the funding piece, and, but I
Yeah.
think your question's a good one.
Between the two.
That non-default question does sound more strongly worded, and
Right.
yet I think Stephanie well described kind of why the recommendation from IASB, which does have a legal department that's putting these together, is recommending that first one. But I can ask our own attorney. I mean, I think it's probably a relatively
Yeah,
quick
if we could
question
just
for her.
find out, I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's like a little nuance in the language, and the first one also, which discusses like the partisan or doctrinal disapproval, right? People wanting to ban books because they think the content, et cetera, whatever, is inappropriate. And the second one doesn't, doesn't say that at all. So I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why either, but I know the first one was recommended. But it sounds like we want one in there. Just do a little bit more digging as to some of the nuance difference
Sure.
between the two.
Yeah,
I
'cause I mean-
nuance in the difference between adheres versus is guided by. Right? Like adheres means we're following it. Guided by means it's guidance.
Right, because I mean, I'm like looking at partisan and doctrinal disapproval. I mean, you can say whatever you want. You say it's not partisan or not doctrinal. I just don't want this book. To me, it seems just sort of. I guess the default one seems just very loose.
Yeah, I think originally I would have come to that conclusion as well, just reading the two, but then from the webinar, I went the other way. They were like, we actually recommend you go with the first one because it's not as vague or nuanced. So I was like, oh, okay. But then I didn't read the Library Bill of Rights to confirm that was the case. So we can look into it.
All right.
Just make a note. Okay. And thanks, for checking into whether or not we are grant recipients. So we have to pick one. So the other one is in regards to, I think I'm moving along to, sorry, I'm kind of going out
I think
of order.
760
Seven-
residents.
Yeah.
So you're
Yes.
you're moving into the sevens though, so I know you're trying to chunk this by section.
Yes.
Are you done with 6?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I am. So residents, 760. Yeah, this is a really big one. I think it's probably one of the most interesting ones out of the 30. But essentially, it allows boards to adopt a policy to waive non-resident tuition if the student is the child of a district employee. And again, we have over 250 full-time employees. So you no longer need to apply to the state board for a waiver or anything if you're going to allow this. Martha and I were just talking about just an unquantifiable number potentially of students based on employing over 250 individuals. So we could be looking at hundreds more children. I mean, we just got public comment tonight from taxpayers, so certainly possible community backlash, but it is in regards to teacher shortage, difficulty in hiring teachers. So that I believe is some of the intent behind this
Yeah.
policy.
I notice the default is no, which is, I guess, interesting, because
Yeah.
why would you default to no if the whole purpose is to provide
to
this?
provide- I think-
that was a
Probably
little.
because
yeah.
it's unquantifiable.
Yeah, maybe. I would recommend we go with no for exactly what you said, Stephanie. Like, I think this could be very disruptive to our district, and then we've got a 22-unit proposed building that could possibly disrupt us more. We got a lot of stuff going on. I don't know, this one doesn't feel very comfortable to me.
Yeah, and I think we're very much kind of ahead of the game with reviewing policy and making decisions, but just preliminary conversations, right, Martha, that you're having with some of our kind of neighboring
Yeah.
schools, feeder schools are also looking at the same outcome, voting no. So
I think this is one that our attorney also shared, that this one doesn't have, a lot of press updates are due to a change in the law. This one is really about the teacher shortage, and so she didn't really,
Okay.
maybe that's why it's the default is no, because it's not a legal
Yeah.
change, it's a.
And if you don't have a real need, then you should default to no.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have a real shortage problem,
Yeah.
then maybe you should, yeah, okay. All right, that makes a little more sense, or it's more logical.
So I guess it's sort of in that, in that question then, the question is, never mind, I'm not formulating the question properly right now, so.
We can come back.
I think that in the conversation, or just in thinking through it, the impact of even having 100 students in our schools, and what the average student cost is $17,000. I mean, we're looking at $1.7 million added to our budget. So just thinking about it in terms of our space, our budget, and that we're not facing a real teacher shortage in our district. So I'm inclined to vote against it.
Right, I guess
Or not
that was
accept
for
it.
my question, that's my question. Is this like an all or nothing type thing?
Yeah,
It's an all or
I
nothing.
don't think you can pick and choose. That's not fair, right? So, or
Well-
maybe I'm not understanding what
Yeah,
you're
I think
saying.
I think it's basically like allows you, right? But
Yeah,
then
it
the
allows
board would
me to
have to
have discretion.
decide,
It says-
somebody
yeah.
would have
Oh,
to pick and choose
okay.
which
I don't wanna be in
which
that position.
person's children can and cannot. So
Yeah.
it doesn't require that you accept all, but that you accept, like, I don't know, not applications or requests, but then you can decide on that request what you're gonna do with it. But right, that creates a whole can of worms
Yeah, I know
if you're
that's-
saying yes to some, no to some.
Yeah, potential discriminatory acts or
Yeah,
whatever,
just
like
agree.
that just,
I feel like if we did it, or any district that did it, it would have to be any child, any district child.
I wonder if there are districts that maybe have a real teacher recruitment problem and plenty of space, right? So there are districts that are under-enrolled, right? We're just not, you know, we're kind of at our
Right,
max, it
we
feels like.
we built to our need
Yeah.
at the time. We didn't
Yeah.
build for excess
We
capacity.
did a demographic study, it did not include, you know, additional children of 250 other individuals, so.
right.
Yeah.
Focus on. I know we have.
Okay, well, it was the most interesting one, but I think we all understand, interesting or not, the realities of why it would not work in our district. Thanks for sharing those additional thoughts too, Selena. Okay, so some of the others in the 7160, student appearance. Just this one I thought was interesting to note. New law that came out of a student wanting to incorporate like Native American accessories into their graduation attire. So essentially this law guarantees that students can accessorize their graduation attire, and we do have, you know, 8th graders that go through a formal graduation with items associated with their cultural, ethnic, religious identity, or other protected characteristics. So that would include things like sexual orientation, so pride flags, rainbows, symbols, you know, would have to allow that.
And I will just say,
Yeah.
this is something I did talk with April and Chris, and we do have children that have adorned their graduation attire in different ways, and we have allowed it in the past, so the policy would be consistent with our practices.
Okay, 7190, which we probably will have some discussion around. Wanted to bring that one up as well. This one falls under student behavior, so it's got a couple of different areas. So this is actually the first time that we see the AI language start to appear in some of our press policies. So they have some recommended language around AI, so I know it's just kind of like scratching the surface. I know we talked about, Dawn and Angela were looking into what some other districts are doing around this. So we're thinking maybe, you know, having future discussions at like a February COW, or maybe like education committee, just to understand, like, you know, current use, responsibility, use of technology. But there is some language that has been added regarding AI, mostly under kind of your own work, the plagiarizing section. I don't know. I want to presume there's conversation maybe around that, but that is the
This
language
was-
as it exists.
I didn't understand, and this was for 7190, correct?
Yes, there's some other stuff because it's 7190 itself is student behavior, so it falls under student behavior, under
Kind of
academic
plagiarism,
dishonesty,
yeah.
plagiarism.
I gotta be honest, I was caught with the initial question.
Yeah, the question comes later about like victims, aggressors, like informing parents, but it's just a really long policy around student behavior, and the AI comes in under your own work.
I was most intrigued by that. I'm like, okay, well.
I figured, yeah.
Got a little.
It scratches the surface.
I would say it's not even scratching. It's maybe just a dust, like a dust falling on.
Yeah, but certainly it sounds like an area that the board is interested just to learn more about in terms of, practice and maybe if it's not via policy, maybe there's, more in procedure and.
I guess I'm caught up. I don't really understand what the question is asking, and I guess it makes
Oh,
it
so
seem
in
like,
terms of,
makes it seem like the parents are only being contacted. I really, I guess I didn't understand
Where's the question?
Yeah.
why you would not contact. It's like anything firearm related. Why would you not be contacting the parents? That didn't make any sense.
Yeah, so this is one of the ones that I guess kind of Martha and I were talking about that, and I think you said you talked to Nikki about this one.
And Dan, I share your confusion, and maybe it's being a middle school that
Like,
we're always telling
We're always
parents
doing
everything that happens with their child, it seems. So this seems extreme.
Is it
and-
just making it mandatory? Like, I'm with you, Dan. like,
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
we
It's
don't
Yeah,
mandatory
that's
when
kind
it's
of what
firearm
must-
related, and now we would make it
or battery of a
mandatory
staff member.
regarding.
I mean,
But like
That's
you
kind
said,
of
like
what we
maybe it
understood.
doesn't
Again,
need to be
assuming
policy
there
versus
were, we
procedure.
were already doing that, but assuming there were districts that for one reason or another were not always informing the victim and the kind of aggressor's parents in these instances, now they must or they're required to. Perhaps it came out of situations where they were not. But again, when we
Just
saw
can't
this, we're like,
imagine
isn't this already what
yeah.
Like,
we
yeah,
would have
part of
to
our-
do?
Because part of why I reached out to Nikki, I said, am I supposed to tell the whole community? Which also, as we've, like.
No, it was like the victim
Yeah,
and
and she said, no,
the
it's about
aggressor.
parent notification.
Parent
Yeah.
notification.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, do we have to? That's what I thought. We tell the whole school
Yeah.
district like that this happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like going this.
Yeah, and so as a K-8, pre-K-8 district, I can't imagine a situation where the parents aren't involved and engaged in a conversation that would be involving this level of
Yeah,
serious
drug
discipline.
or battery
Yeah.
and stuff.
So what was this policy written by AI? I wonder.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
maybe
what-
There's some things that you get with AI that are like, wait, what
You
is
did
this?
Wait, makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
hallucinated. But yes, I mean, I guess we will, in policy, expand the notification duty, again, something that we're already doing.
Well, and the battery one makes sense to me. I guess the drug one, there could be some really benign, like what is the definition of, I don't know.
Of drug-related incidents.
I'm just trying to think. There's just so much stuff when it comes to that. Like, what is that definition? Is it like actual drugs on premises, drug use, paraphernalia? Like, is there just anything related to drugs has to be
Depends how
notified?
you
Or
talk about what is a drug-related incident.
Yeah, that's-
I mean, it's vague.
battery's
You're-
pretty
you're
clear.
Absolutely.
It almost
So,
seems
all right.
like we need like a whole section on this one because it is such a big policy and there's so many changes to it, I guess. Some things that just aren't clear.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of all falls under
I
the
mean, the
student.
change is about the academic dishonesty related to AI, and then the change is about the reporting piece. Yeah, this has always been a lengthy, I mean, a lot of this is unchanged, right? So this has always been a very core policy that is often referred to, right? This is one that we share in our student parent handbook. This is one that we share much more widely because it really does impact functioning in the school district. They all do, but this one maybe more than others.
I mean, drug-related offenses, in my opinion, and I think what this policy states is if it's a drug-related offense that's currently something that's not as banned at like at a state level, that's what we would be reporting on. Not if a kid comes comes to school with like an inhaler but forgot to have like tell the nurse to bring an inhaler to school. You know?
it's
Do
interesting.
we want further definition? I would say we would pursue that legally. I mean, you bring up a point, is it, prescription medication that's not authorized?
Yeah, I assume it's illicit drugs, not
I'm
any
assuming
drugs.
it's illicit drugs, not like the kids on antibiotics and.
But the weird thing is none of that is actually in the green changes. Like the standard policy number 2 is observes or has reason to suspect any person on school grounds is or was involved in a drug-related incident, 3 observes battery, and then the addition is or is subject to battery, and then the next one talks about if any of these above, and then the third one is just about battery again. So like,
Right.
I'm not clear where the drug thing comes into that question, or how it's different, I guess,
Yeah,
maybe than
and
what's
that-
already in
right.
here. So, yeah, I guess maybe just understanding that language change would be better before we vote on it.
Well, let's ask a real person, not an AI.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, good on the AI
Appreciate
stuff
that,
as
Yeah,
an
I'm good
initial
on the AI
dusting.
stuff.
Don't
right?
know, Dan.
Yes.
And I'm not opposed to any of the drug stuff. I'm not sure I'm understanding what the change is exactly.
That's fair, yeah.
I'm just looking at the
I'm
press
not-
notes on it too.
I
just
was
to-
too. I have more notes on the AI stuff. To Dan's point, like, wait, but the question, I felt the same way. I fixated on the
The
AI
AI
stuff.
one
and
feels
the
pretty
question
straightforward.
has
Don't
nothing to
use
do with
artificial
AI.
intelligence to do your homework. Like, yeah, I'm good with
Well,
that.
that's what I had to ask. Were we talking about the same policy?
What it does is, school staff have to notify the building principal in the event of certain elements. And then the building principal shall immediately notify local law enforcement plus the superintendent and the student's parent guardian. What this does is it then makes the before the superintendent really only had to notify the parents about a weapon. This then adds the drug-related incidents to the required things that the superintendent has to tell the parent. So it's almost, it adds to the elements that have to be reported to the parents. A lot of the stuff already had to be reported internally within the school or to law enforcement.
Right, but I
Oh,
get,
that's
That's
the
a good
change. Okay,
nuance,
so the
yeah.
change is going from we currently only have to required to notify the principal. Now you'd be required to notify the superintendent and law enforcement. So that's the change, not drug language. It's the who needs to be notified.
It's
is
the who,
change.
it's
okay.
it's who has to be notified and of what.
Okay.
It's the of what, and it basically adds the parental person into this mix.
Okay.
Law enforcement was already there for drugs.
Well, drugs was already part of the reporting thing, and that's where
Yes.
because there's nothing new about drugs in here that I'm seeing. But that makes more sense. Like you only had to notify a parent and a principal. Now you have to notify these additional people when that's involved. So that
Yeah.
feels
The
more
additional
logical,
piece is the
assuming you're
parent. The
correct.
additional piece
The
is the
additional
parent.
people is the parent.
Oh, the additional,
Yeah.
but it doesn't say anything
Yes.
about the parent
I guess
in
based
here.
on-
It does. You have to read three paragraphs of text, and the little nuances that they threw in there at the end.
And the press notes say something about aligning it to the administrative procedures already in place. So.
And I think that's.
And again, it's like, it's middle, maybe it's different in a high
Yeah,
school, I
that's-
don't know.
yeah.
But
I'll go back and read
That's
this
why,
one
again,
I was-
sorry, I didn't spend as
No, it's okay.
thorough as you all do on this
Yeah.
one section, because I was like, we are doing
Yeah,
this.
right.
Okay. Well, I made a note here. We have more clarity on the.
I'm curious on why previously, if there was a drug-related incident, the parents didn't need to be notified, and now they do. And my concern with that one would be if there is like, if that's being sensitive to all of these trauma-related, like, if that consideration was why we didn't inform parents before, but we're not as considerate of that now, so like, is that, and this just goes to some of the trauma training, trauma practices, or sensitive practices that like I learned about in the educational seminars is like, is it always in the best interest of the student to inform the parent?
That's become a hot button issue.
Yeah. That's a really good point. We were actually, one of the trainings that I went to at the conference had to do about the rights of transgender students. And it was a lot of, if a child presents himself to a teacher and says, here's my desire to be referred to as this, they want to create a plan, a gender support plan, like, but the child perhaps has not informed their parent. What then does a district do? So there was a lot of discussion about that as well. I hadn't thought about it from that lens. So yeah. But yeah, we can look more into it more as to why. I mean, obviously, rest assured, it is something that we are, as a district, students doing if in these instances would happen here. But yeah, if there's interest in understanding the purpose and intent behind the why, we can look into that.
And I think just to tie it back to the mission, what you just said is we're trying to do what's in the best interest of that student. And if that is not in the best interest, should we be doing that? So I agree with that thought. Because everything, especially with that stuff, it can be very nuanced.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the last one really that I wanted to talk about that had the question was 7270, administering medicines to students. We've actually had this conversation in the past about the opioid antagonist or Narcan and whether or not we were interested in adding it. So it was previously optional. We had opted not to add it. I know our nurses, kind of had come back to it with us, but now it's actually required. So I think we're already looking at obtaining the supply. It's not like there's like a shortage and everybody, so we will now be required to have a supply of Narcan, or commonly referred to as Narcan.
So, just sort of for clarification, so we have to go get this drug, and I know this drug, I guess the state's not giving us money for this, right?
No, they said it was like $45 for a 2-pack.
North looked into it, so there is some kind of Cook County Department of Public
grant
Health
or-
is
okay.
making it available to us,
Yeah.
Okay.
free.
Free, but not, they're subsidizing.
Subset, okay. So I just wanted to sort of point out that a lot of these things that come out, we have to do without getting full funding for these things.
I guess the other question or something, you mentioned Narcan. We definitely talked about that. This was a
Yeah,
new
but-
one on me, though. Was it free-flowing oxygen or
So the
something like that?
question, so much like the other one, Dan, the actual question in this policy does not have to do with the Narcan. It has to do with having a supply, undesignated supply of oxygen tanks. And this is optional for districts that want to provide that supply. It's kind of for districts that have like special educational facilities, although that's not exactly defined. Do they mean a separate building, like self-contained classrooms? But anyway, in discussion, and I don't know if this was a Nikki one, but the recommendation here is no, that we're not going on the oxygen question. It's very hard to safely kind of store an undesignated supply of oxygen tanks. We're talking about very medically fragile students that would require oxygen, are typically not enrolled in D96 schools. They're some of the
Often our LADSI programs. And I think we
programs.
could revisit the policy. I mean, it's possible a very medically fragile child could be enrolled,
right.
in our schools. That's not the case right now, but it doesn't, and this is actually undesignated because a medically fragile child who may have
Would
designated
have,
oxygen is already gonna have whatever's all required prescription and.
Yeah, I guess if it's undesignated, I'm wondering, okay, why would we have it then? I guess I don't
And I'm
quite
glad
understand.
the storage came up because medical grade oxygen is highly explosive.
So who knows if in a year
Well,
we'll
that's
be
coming.
required to, like we were with Narcan,
There's
but-
very, very clear procedures in which you store these things and
Yes.
protect them from accidental knocking them over because they will blow up.
So, I mean, my recommendation would be the default of no to the question that relates to the undesignated supply of oxygen.
That should be the question then. Do you want to store something that could potentially blow up? Yes or no?
Not unless it's.
And I mean, I don't want to scare it, but it's not just going to spontaneously combust. But if it gets knocked right, it's a huge
Well, it's
problem.
one of the three pillars of fire.
Yep. Well, that
That's the
too.
issue. Well,
Yeah.
that's the main issue. Is
Yeah.
that-
I mean, if we don't have any students now, or I guess I'm guessing we've never had, or at least to your knowledge, we haven't had someone, well, but yeah, I guess yourself, you said that would be designated, not undesignated.
Right, they would come with all the right requirements. I don't know if oxygen requires a prescription. I don't know enough about how
I don't know.
it's required, but
This seems like something that we can
we could revisit.
defer until
Yeah.
we need
Until
to,
needed, yeah,
until it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think I have anything else, sorry. not as smooth as I would have wanted. Thanks, everybody,
a
for your,
No,
for your help.
Stephanie, it's especially this time of year, that was a lot, so I definitely appreciate all your work on this.
Again, and I mentioned at the beginning where my day job just rolled out some new programs, so I've been extensively just reading, like, you know, student handbooks and admissions guidelines, and so
Well
my brain
appreciated.
is on overdrive this month.
Yeah. Very thorough, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So you're done? Okay,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
mean,
I just-
again, other ones, but none that I thought
You said that, but it was kind of-
necessitated
I wasn't sure if you were, like,
conversation.
serious. Okay, all right.
Done, right at 9.
Okay.
Done.
It does not appear that we have any other public comment, so Kathy, no public comment? I don't see anybody. We're not doing the email stuff anymore, right? Yeah, okay, nope. All right, so that moves us into future meeting dates.
Oh, can I make a suggestion on a new business item?
Okay. Not for tonight, but for future.
No, for
Yeah,
future,
okay.
yeah. So now that we are at the end of our first trimester, I thought that the board should consider having absenteeism reported to them on a trimesterly basis so we can track our progress. So seeing, like, in the same way as an information item that we see in the board pack, data on lunches purchased or served, we see information on attendance and tardy by school and kind of track that. The point there would just be, if we're not tracking this data, how are we holding ourselves accountable? We know that this is a very important part of student achievement, is having the students in the classroom, and so if we're not tracking it, how are we improving? So maybe we can discuss that at a future session, but I just think it's super important information for us to have.
I think did you not suggest doing that on a monthly basis? You're right, I'm not seeing that in here. But I think and I asked that because I think that would be fine to put it in here. I don't think that should be terribly difficult to do, but I think what you're saying is openly talk, like put it on as a new business agenda item, talk about it.
I think,
Assess
first
it.
of all, I think just seeing the information so that way we can assess it is important, and seeing like how we're improving on a year-over-year basis, because I think knowing what we do about some of our attendance issues over the last couple of years, to wait an entire year until we assess it again doesn't allow us to intervene if there needs to be intervention mid-year. And so, like on my students' report cards, it shows how many days they were absent, how many days they were tardy. So I know that information is out there somewhere. It would be nice to have it aggregated and presented to the board so that way we can keep an eye on it and understand if we need to allocate resources to improve it.
Yeah. I think we can talk about that, work on it, yeah. I think it's a good suggestion. Anything else before I move into the closing portion of the agenda? No? Okay, thanks, Lena. So future meeting dates, January 3rd meeting is canceled due to the holiday. January 17th, we will have a regular business meeting at 7 p.m. here in the Hauser Learning Resource Center. We will enter closed session at 6:15 if necessary. February 7th, we have a committee of the whole meeting at 7 p.m. at the multipurpose room at Central Elementary School. And February 21st, we will have our regular business meeting at 7 p.m. here in the Hauser Learning Resource Center, and closed session at 6:15 if necessary. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.